Please welcome Vice Admiral Hunt.
Well, great. Thank you, Admiral. Appreciate that introduction. Good afternoon and welcome to the supporters of our Surface Navy. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today and share some of my thoughts and where we are headed in the surface community. Whenever I get together in a group like this, I always like to take some time at the beginning to talk about the fact that we are a nation at war. We remain a nation at war, and we should never forget that. This is a war that we've been fighting for over 10 years, and think of the toll that it's had on us, and we've changed as a result of that. We continue to deal with transnational terrorism, despite the fact that several of the bad actors have been removed. And we've done a great job in that. We must be prepared to deal with nations at odds with our own, peer competitors, for those of you that have grown up with the Navy speak. Surrounding all this, I would offer, is uncertainty in everything that we deal with. And that, I believe, is the biggest challenge of all. And how we deal with that is the very essence of what we have to do in the training and preparation of our surface force. So think about Arab Spring. Think about natural disasters, earthquakes, tsunamis. Think about piracy and other areas unknown. We have to deal with this, and we do deal with it. We do a terrific job. We had Enfosis several weeks ago, and I had the opportunity to get together with our surface flag officer community, and I asked each of them what it was that we have failed at. And I didn't get an answer. I don't think that we have failed at anything. Now, we have pretty high standards, and we continue to poke at ourselves and to drive to raise that bar higher and to do better. And there's an awful lot of folks in the front rows here that I work with very closely. If you look at those individuals and you ask them what we need to do, we'll come up with manning issues, training issues, maintenance issues, maybe future capabilities, got all that. But when it comes down to sailors at sea executing the missions that we assign them, we knock it out of the park every single time. And we really do. We ought to be tremendously proud of that. So we strive to do better. We will always strive to do better. It'll take the support of everybody in this audience to be able to do that. But we do a great job. So I'd like to start with just a short clip that highlights how the surface force, and I stress surface force, responded to multiple events in the spring of last year, not unlike anything that goes on in any given week. When I talk surface force, by the way, it's everything projecting power from the sea off our platforms. So make sure we do not forget that's United States Marines coming off amphibs, that's Coast Guard sailing with us, as they often do. So we have that team out there, but on our side, in this uniform, it's the surface warriors that anchor the U.S. Navy portion of it. So with that, I'd like to roll the clip, if I could. Now, it's interesting, in those first couple of events, the common thread there was absolutely no warning. So these events happened, whether it was going in for the Arab Spring piece, or whether it was responding to the earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear disaster. We had folks happen to be in the area close by that responded with the training that we had given them. They innovated, they figured out what they had to do to adapt, and they knocked it out of the park. It's what surface warfare does in every instance. The rest of that clip kind of showed the other stuff that was going on. It's absolutely amazing when you take a look what happens in any given week within surface warfare. We are out and about, we are pushing the edge, we are training and preparing for the next unanticipated event, and we're doing a terrific job. We adapt when necessary, but the bottom line is we excel in every single instance, and we got to be proud of that fact. I think we have a tendency sometimes, in particular inside the Beltway, of beating up on ourselves, and I got to tell you, we have one incredible organization. Most of it is due to our sailors. What do we have to do to ensure that we can continue to excel? I think that's one of the key responsibilities and challenges that I have as a type commander for surface warfare. How do we best prepare our sailors to continue to meet unknown events head on? Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that I look at very closely is to the CNO's tenets, the guidance that he provided in his sailing directions, because I think they provide great guidance, and I think it matches and is very well aligned with everything that we do in surface warfare. So think about that. Warfighting first, operate forward, and be ready. 6 words, incredibly powerful words in my mind. And again, it focuses on what we as surface warfare community have really centered on for the total existence of the United States Navy over 230 years. Warfighting first. I view that as a reaffirmation of all that we stand for. That's what we are about, is to be able to take the fight to the enemy whenever, wherever required, and to carry the day, to excel. And I really like those words as kind of the lead on where we're going with this particular CNO. It's great. We have a tendency, again, sometimes to spend an awful lot of time and effort thinking about budgets and balancing. That's not what it's about. That's what it takes to be able to project the power. But we should never lose focus on the fact that it is about projecting that power, warfighting first, that everything centers on. So providing credible combat power with properly manned, trained, and equipped forces. That's what we're focusing on. Fully capable, ready to prevail in every situation. You just saw some of that. And when I say that, it's now. That's what we're doing, and it's in the future, and that's key to where we have to go, what we need to think about. We need to focus on ensuring platform wholeness. I'll talk more about that a little bit later. Again, warfighting first. Second piece is operate forward. I would offer that presence allows us to shape situations. Capability allows us to respond to situations. You've got to have a balance in both. What we in the surface warfare community bring is the ability to have contact with other nations, other people, and shape the situation, perhaps preventing war or minimizing conflict, as opposed to rolling in and carrying the day after one has already started. A much better equation in my mind. We've taken a look at some of the guidance that's come out very recently. We know we're going to focus in Asia Pacific, we're going to focus in the Middle East, and I would offer we'll keep our eyes on those strategic crossroads across the globe. If there's a choke point out there, we're going to be there. So we are still going to be a global force, and we will have impact. We know where those areas are, and we'll keep things flowing as we always have. Engagement with others. Our surface Navy brings contact with others. Contact equates to influence. We're the only community in the United States Navy that can do this. And again, as I said earlier, I include our Marine partners when I make these kind of comments, operating from amphibs, and that's a very important piece to that equation. We provide full spectrum capability, whether it's HADR, theater security cooperation, all the way through major combat operations. We assure our allies, we deter our adversaries, and equally important is we encourage those yet undecided to join our camp, and that's very powerful and something we need to continue to keep our eyes on. Be ready. Be ready is the enabler for everything. I focus on professionalism. I focus on taking ownership of our ships. I would like to kind of make an aside comment and say one of the keys to being ready is developing resilience. And when I talk resilience, I mean the ability to self-sustain at sea for an extended period of time without that the advantage of reach back, if you will, to do what our sailors did with baling wire and bubble gum back in World War II, keeping things going. And so that requires the proper training, the proper manning. It requires the proper sparing. It requires guys that can think on their head to innovate and get the job done. That's a very, very important piece because, again, that skilled adversary out there is going to go after everything that we kind of come to expect in a peacetime environment. There's going to be cyber attacks, communication denial, satellites disappearing, and so some of those things that we've come to rely upon may not be out there. We need to figure out how to operate around that and succeed without it, just like we have throughout the history of the community. I am committed to properly resourcing our sailors to be the professionals that they strive to be. I think it may be the most important thing that we do. As we move forward to ensure these tenets are achieved, I kind of think about things grouped into 3 bins: people, things, and ideas. And I want to talk a little bit about stuff that we're doing in each of those as a community to give you an idea of where we are headed and perhaps where you can help us do even better. People certainly our most important asset. We've been saying that since day one. We grow up saying that, but let me tell you, we've got to get this and we've got to get it right. Our people define who we are and they reflect our values. We must remain at the top of our game, and we must instill professionalism in all that we do. So what are we doing? And I'll take a look at it from both the officer and the enlisted side of the house. One of the things that I am working very hard towards, and I think we're going to get there by the end of this fiscal year, is to reestablish the basic division officers course. And so we used to have schools in Newport and in San Diego and taught about a 16-week course, did a great job, kind of elevated us to a certain level, and over the years we backed away from that. We did away with that training, tried to do it in other ways. My predecessor, Admiral Curtis, reestablished kind of a waterfront training, normally about 4 weeks in duration, that we did out of Hyde by our ATG folks. And the feedback on that was tremendous. It was a great beginning, and I say beginning because it started moving us back to properly prepare our young officers before or shortly after they got to their first ship. I think I've talked to every single class that has graduated on the West Coast probably over the last year. I did it even while I was at 3rd Fleet, and certainly getting all the classes now in the Type Commander slot. The feedback is consistent. Our young officers are thirsty for more, better, deeper preparation before they hit the ship so they can hit it running and do a great job. Again, they want to be professionals, and so we owe them that preparation. So we are working again to start a basic division officer school. We'll do it on the waterfront. I thought there'd be a clamor to go back to Newport. Resounding no. We want to go to school where during lunch we can get out and eat at McDonald's or wherever they eat, Subway, and take a look at those gray hull things, where they're going, what they want to do for the professional life. And so we will establish this in Norfolk, and we'll establish it in San Diego. Eventually, perhaps we migrate to one place, but in the beginning, and some of it's due to the logistics of it, we'll start in the 2 major fleet concentration areas. It'll be a mandatory eye stop before you get to your first ship. And again, it comes down to guys going to sea for a couple weeks or a couple months or up to a year. Some people coming back while the ship's on deployment. Let's just front load this thing and push people into that training and education before they report. So again, they hit the deck plates running. It'll be Newport, SWAS, run, and organized, which again I think brings commonality to the course, consistency, and elevates it to a high level. That's not to say that the ATG guys don't do a great job, but our SWAS professionals run by Captain Parrott, that's the way to go. That's the way we're going to do it. And to start this package by the end of the fiscal year is kind of where we're going. That's step 1. We are taking a look at what we do for division officer sequencing. When I say that, really, I mean all the way through command. To take a look at where the milestones are achieved, what we're doing to prepare for folks for command and beyond, and we've done some great stuff. XOCO Fleet Up is kind of hitting its run time right now. We are starting to see results, and frankly, they're pretty good. So we want to take a review of that and see, are we moving forward with the right stuff at the right time to make sure that we're doing every bit as good as we need to in that particular program. I see us continuing to use training back at Newport between 1st and 2nd Tour Division Officers. We have the ASAT program back there right now. This would be a 3 or 4 week course to kind of make people a super division officer, to prepare them for follow-on department head tours, and get some more seamanship training, you know, the kind of things that they are really looking for. We are taking a look at continuing to push the professionalism of the community, so it's reestablishing the written command qualification test. I will tell you, I spent a lot of time getting ready for that. It probably took me to look outside the lifelines in ways that I'm not sure I would have done had I not been forced to take and pass that particular test. So, you know, as a crew des guy, it's probably my first taste of AMFIT. Vitally important to what we do to become professionals. And then another final thing is in the XO-CO fleet up, going to put a twist in there, and that's going to be an ISIC certification of the XO to make sure that before they move into that CO spot that they really have done the right stuff, the right training, they focused on the programs that they need to as an XO to then do the transition in there. I think it's important to take a look at what the SWO, Surface Warfare Officer of the Future, looks like. I'm committed to graduate education and looking at tailored assignments and how we groom people for other things, interdisciplinary studies. How do you get guys, because some portion of them, whether they think so or not, are going to end up as post-major command folks, possibly flag officers. And are we giving them the right tools? I'll go back to the uncertainty in the strategic environment to deal with that. When I went to CJTF HOA on the ground and took command of Army infantry and Marines, and ended up with a small Air Force and did ISR and things like that, boy, I never thought as a surface warfare officer I was going to be pushed into those roles. What are we doing to prepare people to help them get better? Do the folks do that now? You bet they do that. Think of the IAs and the number of people that are out there on the ground doing different jobs around the globe in ways that might not be traditional but are vitally important to all that we do. And so kind of a broad spectrum of professionalization to go after it very holistically for the surface warfare community and to drive it with some speed and expediency. On the enlisted side, what I want to do is get back, first of all, to proper resourcing. So we've actually turned the tide on some of the cuts that we've had in optimal manning. We'll continue to work with Chief Nav PERS and with the Vice CNO to kind of restore some of those cuts and get to the right level. A second piece of that would be I want to get back to what I call enriching shore tour assignments. And so we have guys going ship to shore. When you go back to the shore duty, I think that our very best and brightest ought to go to training commands, ATG, or perhaps Great Lakes. They ought to go to the RMCs so they learn the O-level maintenance and take it to the next level so that when they return to sea duty, they are at a higher level than when they left. Getting my hands around that surface community manning and how I do the assigning and how I can interact with that is kind of a growth area, quite frankly, for me, but something that I'm taking on very directly to make sure we get the right guys in that apprentice, journeyman, master training program so that we get folks properly qualified in the jobs that they will do. I will tell you that we've looked at, for optimal manning, fit and fill. The fit deal that we've been unable to achieve for a variety of reasons is not only pay grade, but NEC and experience, and that requires us to do a little bit more hands-on in the detailing and moving forward, and I want to do that, and so we're moving in that direction. Here's another area that that we're taking a look at. How much brick and mortar schoolhouse teaching do we do? And how much hands-on, on the ship training do we do? So we have engineering readiness assistance training teams, ERAT teams, and the feedback for those is absolutely tremendous every time that we hold those classes. So you rip down an HPAC and you put it back and you've got the subject matter expert teaching folks. We've done that with great impact in the past. It continues to have impact. Our new young sailors are wired a little bit different than those of us that are a little bit older. What's the right way to match with the way they think, the way they do business, and how can we get them more to be ownership focused on their gear? I think it's hands-on training with their chief over their back with the subject matter expert training fixing their equipment. I think tremendous value added in that, and we're working in that direction. I would offer that since 2002, we've moved from a manning environment of a Navy of 384,000 active duty folks down to the 320s. And where that settles, I'm not really sure, but that's over 60,000 sailors that have been taken off the books in the last decade. To put that in perspective, we have about 55,000 sailors in the surface warfare community. These are huge numbers that have gone away. Again, if you go back to people are the most important priority that we have out there, making sure that we resource the numbers, resource the training and education properly has got to be at the very top of all that we do. And we're committed to doing that. Things. And I'll talk current readiness, I'll talk wholeness, and I'll talk little game changers. So current readiness. In this regard, I think the biggest area that we are actively moving forward, and this is a partnership with NAVSEA, with SPAWAR, with ourselves, and it's to put that rigor back in the maintenance program. We've restood up, and this goes out of the Surface Warfare Enterprise, SURF-MET, which goes to the establishment or reestablishment of class maintenance plan, formal work packages. We have put in place what used to be, in the old vernacular, POTNAs, TISRA 1 events, our total ship readiness assessments, out there in the 180, 240 day prior to overhaul assessments of the ship to make sure the CSMP is right, the work package is correct, and then we go into the work package, long lead time material is ordered, we have a defined package, and we minimize discovery. And when I say discovery, what does that mean? The average surface, at least on the West Coast work package right now, has anywhere from 35 to 40% growth. Some of the growth in packages are up to 100%. You know, we're going into spaces that we haven't opened up and looked at for over a decade. And guess what? We have surprises when we do that. We need to get back to the basic fundamentals of good engineering practices, do the inspections, take the time to do that right, plan the packages, and then hold people accountable as we go forward in maintenance. So resourcing with accountability on both the uniform side and the shipyard side is absolutely important. Again, it goes back to a culture of ownership. And I talked to Rob Ray, who's president of INSERV, quite often on this, and it's getting people to know and understand their gear, to be able to present their gear, to operate in accordance with procedures. You think that's all simple, but if you're not out there doing it, it's not as simple as it sounds just standing up here talking about it. We have been working for about a year and a half on putting together a new Surface Force Readiness Manual. Note that I said readiness manual as opposed to training manual. That includes everything that will map inside the FRTP. So it's the maintenance piece and inspect to make sure the maintenance is done right. It's then basic training and make sure that that training goes right, and then that we adequately pass off for intermediate and advanced training down the road. We've got this thing out to CHOP right now, and it's out to CHOP to the ships. So commanding officers, their wardrooms, their chief's mess are all taking a cut on what we're saying to make sure it's the right stuff at the right level, something that we all want to move forward. And I think, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but we are targeting the end of next month to pull the trigger and get that out, and I think we're on that course. And I think that will be very, very powerful. A final thing that I'll say in the readiness aspect is that we have to actively manage total ownership costs. So take a look at what we're doing. Get into things like corrosion control. Do things that make the long-term difference. You know, again, I mentioned we haven't been into some of the tanks in over a decade. We've got to do that kind of stuff. And then when we go in there, we've got to do the right preservation to set us up so it will last 10 years or 15 years down the road. And if you go to our labs and you talk to folks at Naval Research Lab, for example, we have these kind of products out there. We need to mandate them and start going forward with it. Costs a little bit more up front. It'll make a huge difference coming back on the other end. Platform wholeness, a little bit longer, a little bit more, perhaps Washington-centric, is very important. I'll start with Aegis wholeness. Depending on how you look at these things, you could say that we've got up to 20 baselines for Aegis out there when it's differences in equipment. Think about what that, out of 80-some Aegis ships. So think about what it is for ILS, for the sparing. Think about what it is for training. Think about what it is for our sailors when they go between ships. I want to wicker down, I'll call it type model series like our aviation brethren, wicker those baselines down, provide commonality, test, make sure they're interoperable, get stability out there so we can count on the systems, kind of freeze the program. Now we'll continue to develop, but before we install and move on to the next level, we'll have something we can hang our hat on, and then we'll jump as many and as quickly as we can to that next baseline. I would offer for cruisers and destroyers, you ought to have a legacy and a COTS version of each. As we move to COTS, you can harvest some of that equipment off the ones that you're upgrading to COTS and keep some of the legacy guys going. That is kind of a cost trade that we'll go through. That gives you 4, not 20 baselines, and then we'll move on to the future and do it the right way. We have to do that. LCS, similar kind of things out there. We're at the beginning of LCS, figuring out where we're going. There's a great emphasis to get LCS forward deployed as quickly as we can. I think that's great. I think that's achievable. I think the specifics on that will come out over the next couple of months or so. I will tell you that in the last week, we've passed a package that's been chopped by both Admiral Walsh and Admiral Harvey, and that's gone up to the CNO, and OPNAV has that for consideration. I think we can get a ship out there. I think we can get the crews out there. I think we can make a huge difference, and we're working towards that. We're trying to better understand the whole program, but think about the numbers involved here and how those numbers are going to reflect on the surface community. This could be about 50% of what we've got sometime down the road, maybe a little bit less than that. But it's going to be huge, and when you figure the number of crews, because of the rotational crewing on there, it's a massive impact on our surface future, so we've got to get it right. We have started an LCS wargaming evolution to make sure that we understand all the administrative pieces of the littoral combat ship, as well as how this thing is going to map when we put her forward from a ConOps perspective. And a lot of people energized and moving forward, and I'm very optimistic about this program. It's the right thing to do, and we need it out there very effectively. LPD 17, just a comment on this. We've had some challenges in the past, but if you take a look at San Diego there, she just finished her acceptance trials and knocked it out of the park. First time we've been able to do that. I think that we've turned the corner in LCS. We're going to get that ship out there, and anybody that's been on, rather on an LPD-17, anybody that's been out there on an LPD-17 has to know the capability and just how good that ship is. So getting her out there in numbers as quickly as we can is going to make a huge difference. We're over the hump. We're moving forward. It's a capability that we need. The combatant commanders are just clamoring for more. And I'll end with Flight 3 DDGs. As we move forward with that, we're still looking at what are we going to do with the radar? What kind of weapons go on there? Size of configuration of weapons. All that's out there. I would offer another key aspect of that is the total ownership cost. So how do we make sure that we put, whether it's KPP or KSAs, things in place to ensure that we manage those costs, the ILS piece, how it goes to baseline management. Work that from day one before we get too far down the road, and again, it will be of great positive benefit in the long term. Game changers, in my mind, are something that takes us to the next level. So I'm looking at future stuff now. So it could be battleships to aircraft carriers, or cruise missiles over guns. It could be nuclear power, maybe nuclear weapons. What are we doing to take us to the next level? We need to figure that out. We need to change the equation so that our opponents don't want to challenge us. Again, we'll fight and we'll win if we have to, but I'd really like to be the biggest guy on the block so nobody wants to challenge us. I need that game changer that puts us up there, that deters the opponent from fighting us. And I think that we're pretty close. I think energy weapons are in this group, whether it's lasers, electromagnetic railguns, high-powered microwaves, all of these energy weapons, and I might not have it right. Somebody may have another great idea, and if you do, give it to me. But this provides amazing capability, and it vastly changes the cost equation of weapons. So our systems are incredibly expensive. What's it cost for an energy weapon? A laser or a railgun? Probably 5 gallons of DFM. Think about that. Big cost, big investment to get it out there. Once you get it, it's the right place to be. And so we need to think about that. Let's not be wedded only to existing program of records. Let's take it to the next level and figure out what the game changers are and move it to that next generation. And with that, I'd like to show another quick clip. So I had the opportunity to go watch that shot down in Dahlgren. We're doing great things, we really are. We're doing stuff at NRL, we're doing stuff down at Dahlgren. That was a 32 megajoule shot. That was against a 1,700-pound warhead simulating perhaps a DF-21 or other kinds of things out there. Now, we're not ready to engage those things in space right now. But when you fire that weapon and it goes Mach 7 out there, it comes with an incredible punch. And so I got to tell you, I walked out there to take a look at the debris, and it wasn't much debris. So that was just kind of an aluminum slug that hit that warhead at Mach 7, and it obliterated everything. We have that kind of capability. So as I'm walking back, I take a look and I see in the booth right next to it a smaller railgun, which quite frankly the guys at Dahlgren weren't going to show me, though we have sitting right here. This thing will fire about a 60 millimeter, much smaller than the round that you just saw, not 32 megajoule, but something that's scalable that could certainly put that Mach 7 capability out to the horizon. So again, let's think of the art of the possible. How much movement do you get by a ship out there at 10 miles or 5 miles? FAC-FIAC, think about that. When I've got a point, shoot, and destroy Mach 7 weapon. It doesn't take a very advanced fire control system. I think you can take some of this stuff, you can put it on a platform, you can get it out there, and as soon as we get it, people will clamor for more. So there's opportunities out there. We need to grasp the opportunities, be unafraid to go forward in these things and see where it takes us. Now, eventually, you'll be able to fire that big slug, and it may take us a decade or perhaps longer, 200 miles down the range, and do all kinds of good stuff. We'll get there. You might be able to take that ballistic missile coming in at you. I think you can pretty quickly be able to take a cruise missile coming at you. But let's develop it and move forward and see what we can do in the near term to get some of that up. A couple other areas that I throw into that game changer stuff that we got to work is unmanned platforms, whether it's undersea, whether it's on the surface, or whether it's in the air. That's where we're moving. We're committed to doing that, and surface warfare is going to have a role in each and every one of those areas. I will talk embedded high-fidelity simulation. We ought to have that capability for every workstation and every ship that we build. And it ought to be designed into the program from day one. So whether it's combat systems, ships control, or engineering, I ought to be able to train my sailors individually or collectively or as a ship, and I ought to be able to link that information off so I can do FISJ-like training that we do at advanced and intermediate, and that's the way to go. If you do that, it's not that expensive, and you really come up with a great package. I would offer to this crowd that if you haven't been out in a Virginia-class submarine, you ought to try to get out there and see what the submarine community is doing. Cross-pollinate. There's great wisdom and insight in doing that kind of stuff. But we need training on our ships, we need training on our shore-based training facilities, and it all needs to be very high quality. And the final one that I'll talk about is cyber. I think cyber is our greatest vulnerability. We as professionals, all of you in uniform out there, need to study it. You need to learn and understand what's going on. We need to be able to detect cyber attacks, immediately mitigate the impact of those attacks, and be able to use offensive cyber to our advantage when we can. And clearly the standing up of 10th Fleet goes to the importance of just how much leadership values and understands that is a threat out there and as a warfare area. Maybe the most important one as we move into the future. Ideas. I am committed to the belief that prevention of war is as important as prevailing in war. I think we influence situations, again, as I said earlier, by contact. Whether it's HADR, whether it's mill-to-mill training, whether it's exercises or operations with our partners, getting out, having presence, providing credible combat power, making sure that that is understood, using the influence that we bring from the sea to include our partners out there, makes all the difference, and it will change world events. I think that we in the surface community are absolutely centered towards our national defense because of that capability that we bring in the partnership side. It's all about our sailors, our innovative sailors, interacting and influencing others. And this is exactly what we've been doing since the beginning of our Navy. It is the essence of surface warfare. Think of the opening when I talked about dealing with uncertainty. It's what our sailors do. So just yesterday I got an email from Admiral Craig Fowler, CSG-3, John C. Stennis, out there operating with Mobile Bay, and they go through the Strait of Hormuz, and we all read about the impact of that, right? I couldn't go anywhere for the last week without people who knew that I was a naval officer coming up and asking me questions about mining the strait, what Iran was going to do, what the impact on the economy is going to be, and on and on and on. Frankly, our transit out of there was done professionally, and we went through, I guess, some Iranian exercise areas. Okay, we've been doing that a long time, and most of you guys wearing uniforms know and recognize that. But the press in this regard was almost viral. And so let's fast forward to the last couple of days and what happened. So that same group, Mobile Bay and John C. Stennis, Mobile Bay picks up a distress signal of a ship being pirated. Goes to Admiral Fowler on the Stennis, immediately launches a helicopter, and the pirates disappear. The end of event one, if you will. The pirates go back to another ship, appears to be Iranian. It's an Iranian dhow with fishermen on board that has been held by pirates for the last several weeks. And so the strike group dispatches, in this case, USS Kidd. USS Kidd, commanded by Jennifer Ellinger, goes over there, takes a look at the situation, and they try the standard languages out there, and it doesn't work. She remembers what she's heard in the intel picture and goes, I wonder if Urdu works. Maybe we'll try a different language, because the pirates aren't backing down and people aren't moving, and it's not a good scene. And she knows, because she's thought her way through this ahead of time, that she has an Urdu speaker, actually from India, a GSEC on watch down in CCS, so she gets him relief, brings him up, gives him the bridge-to-bridge communications, and says, hey, talk to these guys. Bingo, becomes an immediate game changer. They hear the communications in the language that they're familiar with, guns go down, arms go up, the boarding goes over, it's successful, and now what we have, instead of that viral strategic communications piece of going through the straits, is we've got a U.S. Navy, surface warfare Navy, rescue of an Iranian fishing boat with Iranian fishermen hugging our sailors and thanking them for rescuing them out there. Now the strategic communications challenge falls back on our Iranians instead of on us. This is what we do. We do this by having presence, by being there, by thinking our way through different situations and responding accordingly and making a gigantic difference. I think that's a tremendous coup out there, and it shows what we're all about and the values that we stand for It is, again, the essence of surface warfare, but it takes numbers to have presence, to operate forward, and to be able to provide that kind of capability. So again, I think surface warfare is key to our national security because of the influence that we bring. Through actions like that and through credible combat power if needed. It's now and it's in the coming decades. So we must continue to support and operate within the CNO tenets. Warfighting first, think game changers in the future. Operate forward, think contact like we just talked about. Be ready, think about our sailors and making sure that they've got all the tools to continue to be the professionals they all strive to be. And with that, I thank you for your attention and the opportunity to speak to you, and I'd be delighted to take some questions if anybody has them. Everybody shouting? The retired flags were a little more pointed at this point this morning. Here we have a brave soul.
Sir, Lieutenant Cotter. With regards to
green energy within the Navy, I've been reading a lot about the Navy trying to lead the nation in green initiatives. Can you speak a little bit about what the surface fleet is going to be affected by some of those initiatives?
You know, it's really interesting. I had the opportunity to take Macon Island into San Francisco for Fleet Week a couple years ago. So again, think about changing an environment and having impact. San Francisco, a little bit of those green kind of folks, embracing all those kind of things. I was in San Francisco in the, late 80s when we kind of started leaving the area. It might not have been on the proper footing when we did that. So imagine going back to San Francisco in our energy efficient Macon Island, who's got the electric drive and really has incredible energy saving capability and has demonstrated that thus far. And to be openly welcomed by Senator Feinstein, by Mayor Newsom at the time, George Shultz was up there, former Secretary of State, everybody embracing the fact on where Navy is going and what we're doing. So it's good that we save fuel, it's good that we're green, it's a great talking point, but the real capability is for every gallon of gas that I save, I have one more gallon of gas to burn, and I'm not unrepping and resupplying as often. It gives me longer legs and more capability. Having energy and efficiently using it is going to make a difference in warfighting, and I say warfighting, not just saving energy, into the future and become ever more important. So I think what the Secretary is doing is very insightful, is absolutely brilliant. It will make a difference. Surface Navy's working on that. We're going to have a strike group, I think, within the next couple of years, go out and demonstrate the fact that we can use biofuels across the board, and we'll continue to advance that in other areas, and it's something we need to continue to take a look at for the warfighting side as much as the ecology side.
Yes, sir, a question for you about innovation. The SEALs have the Dev Crews, and aviators have Top Gun and Fallon. Sub folks have SCC and their Devrons. We shuttered Swedge. But what's the future of the surface Devron? So
great point. I'll throw Warfare Centers of Excellence into that group too. And I'll tell you, one of the things that we're looking at and reporting back to CNO, to Admiral Walsh and Admiral Harvey on is, so what do you do to exactly your question? So we've kind of kept a vestige, if you will, of Swedge with an East Coast destroyer squadron. My vision would be, if we can make this happen, is to eventually migrate those folks to San Diego, to stand that up, maybe blend it in with Warfare Centers of Excellence. So we've got NMOC out there doing ASW and mine work, figure out how we can blend with Ship Self-Defense Test Ship. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things out there that you can get a critical mass. Could be with SPAWAR right there at Point Loma. But we need something like that. We need to continue to develop that. There's great desire to do that. And I think you're going to see us come up with something, probably migrate west and marry up with those high-tech facilities that we have already and then kind of get more formalized, much like the other communities have. Great. Well, again, I thank you for your attention and thanks for your support for Surface Navy.